Welcome to That 80s Show, and there really was only one song Dori and I ever were going to start the show with this week because we're all about jumping on the trends and getting the show discovered. How are you doing, Dori?
I'm good. That being said, we don't play The Cure nearly enough. We really don't. And I'm snapping our wrists right now.
Okay. I think The Cure is more cure. So whatever ails you, The Cure is The Cure. Okay, makes sense to me. So how are you doing, Dori? I know you want to talk. Listen, if you're listening on the podcast, you won't have heard. Just like Heaven, The Cure, if you're a fan of a certain TV show, we're going to talk about that later. I think Dori wants to talk about it.
Yes.
But otherwise, how are you doing, Dori? Shame, you were sick last week. What a bummer.
Yeah, I'm still a little bit. I might be a bit croaky, a bit of a frog-like sound. Yeah, no, it's... I think my immune system just decided after COVID, I'm done. You don't need me anymore. Cheers.
Listen,
Laugh now.
These past 2 months have already been a year. I got to be honest.
So true.
It's
so true.
Actually insane that we're going into our first full month of the year, right? Because January was like half, February was like a fake month, 28 days. We're going into our first full month. And already, like, nerves are done. People are absolutely done. It's the apocalypse out there.
No, that's true. I mean, seriously. But way more apocalypse talk coming up. So,
all right. We're going to get into that. Listen, I get very excited. My threshold for 80s, for any movie, TV show that I watch, firstly, is it set in the 80s or is it from the 80s, right? Or is it based on something from the 80s, right? That's my first criteria. That's what I look for. So then I'm very excited by 2 movies coming up, Dori, based on the most random things from the 80s. I'm going to play the trailers. The trailers do everything. 2 movies I cannot wait to see. The first one is coming out on Apple TV Plus at the end of March.
I think I know what it is.
This is all the feels. Take a listen to this.
Okay.
It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I played for 5 minutes. I still see falling blocks in my dreams. It's poetry, art and math, all working in magical synchronicity. It's the perfect game. Tetris?
Tetris. I don't get it.
It's a combination of Tetra, Greek for 4, and tennis.
The
Russian inventor, he likes tennis, and he's all... Yeah. This game isn't just addictive. It stays with you. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Hank, only 10 other people in the world have seen what you're about to see. It's called the Game Boy.
Back to the Tetris. Can you get us the right slip? The Soviet Union had worldwide rights. Nothing gets out easily. I'm gonna go to Moscow.
You're walking into a country that still considers America enemy numero uno.
Okie dokie.
You sure you don't have to talk to your wife about this first?
Pioneers have to bet the house to win.
But not literally.
Listen. Have you ever heard our apartment this quiet before?
This is the inventor of Tetris.
Your game is brilliant. I'm gonna make you a millionaire.
Mr. Hodges, have you ever negotiated with the Soviets?
We're here for Tetris.
We've seized this to Kahani.
What do you say? I don't speak Russian.
The most powerful man in Gomni started is watching you and your family.
Do you know where your husband is?
What the hell is going on?
The world is changing, and Soviet Union will not be left behind.
You want to play with the big boys? This is how the world works.
Where is my money? This is insane. We can't protect you.
Sometimes you gotta forget the rules. This is criminal sin. Soviet Union is about to implode.
They're lying, everybody's lying.
The cavalry is coming.
We don't have time. I have a plan.
Oh, come on. You guys are the kings of cliffhangers.
Not the button, Dori.
I love it that we are in the age where bureaucracy can be interesting.
But that is just, I mean, it's the craziest true life story. I remember reading about it on Wikipedia like a few years ago, going, no ways.
So that movie is
crazy.
that movie is the story of Tetris, and as you can kind of pick out from the trailer, we'll put on that 80 show, that 80 show SF Facebook page. You're right. The story about them getting the rights to Tetris was some Russian programmer. I think he worked for the KGB, and he developed it as some code thing for them to communicate, and they turned it into this game, and it became like almost an international incident to get this like innocuous little game out.
I know. I don't think a scriptwriter could have written it. And I think it does. I think it says that at some point in the trailer, like, you couldn't make this shit up type thing.
So it stars Taron Egerton, lost to, well, you've seen lots of other stuff. We enjoyed him in Rocket Man. I think he's also in Kingsman.
I don't watch Kingsman.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in Kingsman.
His name seems to pop up a lot.
Yes. And listen.
But I'm very excited. I love Tetris. I mean, to this day, I enjoy Tetris. I was obsessed with it as a kid.
Yep.
So very excited.
So that's going to be killer. There's also a Super Mario Brothers live action game, animated, CGI animated Pixar style movie coming out as well. If you want to talk about 80s video games. Not 80s related, but I know that we can't be too far off from having a movie about Snake. you know it's coming, right?
I'm one of those people who I never had a Nokia. I never played Snake. And then when at some point there was a version of Snake that you could play on other phones, I couldn't play that game. It was impossible. I don't know how people did it.
It was a sitting on the toilet game. Let's be honest. It's like, there was no GPS or things on phones that they could track where you were, but they weren't able to switch your microphones on. But I'm telling you, 99% of Snake was played on the toilet. So that's the first 80s related movie, Tetris. And listen, in that trailer, there's the graphics, because a lot of it's like in that kind of 8-bit style. And I love the 8-bit rendition of Final Countdown. I mean, they tease it a few times. I love that. Like, release that.
I mean, visually it looks so cool, where they've like kind of tried to make real life things look like the game.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
So that's going to be great. 31st of March.
Actually, so funny, because I watched the trailer last night and I didn't know that this was going to be a thing. I didn't know that you wanted to talk about it on the show. But what happened was I was going through my YouTube history because I was looking for a song that I was like, there was a song that I wanted to, what was that? And I was going through my YouTube history and I see the trailer for Tetris. And I'm like, but I know I didn't watch this. I didn't even know this was the thing. I asked my kid, they're like, no. Then I realized I'm on the work YouTube account. So somebody in the office had watched the Tetris trailer recently. I'm going to guess that it's possibly Ryan, but I'm going to find out. And then I was like, oh my God, this looks so cool. So it's so just weird synchronicity that I actually watched it last night, found out about it last night. And here we are talking about it.
My gut was Ryan, but also Ryan is hella young. Ryan is ridiculously young. So I don't think you'd know it.
Young, so who else would it be?
Who would it be?
Trying to think who it would be. They're all young.
It was a big Super Bowl ad, so maybe somebody was just going through all the Super Bowl ads. Okay.
Maybe.
This other one's got us excited. So I also do a football podcast with both Senzo and aforementioned Ryan. And of course we love, not just football, we love basketball. This got us very excited. And this one we spoke about a few weeks ago because a Google alert pops up. 19 eras AirJordan, Michael Jordan, and Jason Bateman. Right? How could we not like this?
You said the magic 2 words. You said the magic words.
And this is before we even get into Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. Those are the voices you're going to hear in this next trailer.
1984 has been a tough year. Our sales are down, our growth is down.
Sonny, I brought you in here to grow the basketball business.
People don't know what the hell a Nike is.
What's a Converse?
NBA All-Star shoe.
There's nothing cool about Nike.
You would have to have a pretty compelling pitch.
I can tell them the one thing the other companies can't compete with. Our basketball division is terrible.
I do not love it.
This is where you come up with a brilliant idea that no one else can see. Let's hear it.
I got it.
I found him. Who is that? Jesus? Can't afford it. I'm willing to bet my career on one guy. My name's Sonny Vaccaro. I'm with Nike.
Do you typically make it a habit of showing up at people's front doors unannounced?
I don't like to take no for an answer.
Oh, man. Here we go.
You asked me what I do here. This is what I do. I find you players, and I steal it this time. Okay, it's risky. When you were selling sneakers out of the back of your Plymouth, that was risky. Don't change that now. For a rookie, who's never set foot on an NBA court. That's the literal definition of rookie. Yeah.
What's the plan?
We build a shoe line around just him.
I need the greatest basketball shoe that's ever been made.
But who's the player?
Michael Jordan.
You'll know it. You have a hunch. So now, just show up for that.
I believe in his side. I believe he's the future.
And his story is going to make us want to buy. But the shoe is supposed to show. Until my son steps into it.
You had a name for it? Air Jordan.
I don't know.
Seriously?
You gotta borrow on me.
So that obviously is the story of Nike and Air Jordan. And the crazy thing about it, so in there, Ben Affleck is Phil Knight, the guy who started Nike. And Matt Damon is one of the employees, the guy who's looking after the basketball division. Jason Bateman is also somebody involved in Nike, one of the bosses. And it's so weird to go back into that. So I've read Phil Knight's book, Shoe Dog. It's so weird when they frame this context of people going, nobody thinks Nike is cool. I'm like, what? Like, what a ridiculous concept.
Was that the case back then?
100%. They were the absolute total challenger. So they mentioned Converse, and Converse, especially in the context of the NBA, but Nike were like nobody. They were this challenger brand. The story of Shoe Dog's phenomenal, and it's very set like late 70s, early 80s, and just how he builds up Nike as a challenger to Adidas and Converse. And I think the other one at the time was New Balance or Saucony, but like a brand that's kind of like fallen off. And in terms of NBA, is that Michael Jordan was this rookie. It's so crazy to go, like, nobody wanted to take a chance on him. And he had like lots of shoe companies like offering him deals and wanting to sponsor him. But at the time, no one had like custom shoe lines. You didn't have your own shoe line. So to go offer a guy straight out of college his own shoe line, like called the Air Jordan, was just like, he had never played before. He had never played. Yeah. And they're going to give him the shoe. And I mean, you know, Michael Jordan built the Nike we see today is all built off that original Air Jordan. Do you know how much a pair of, I mean, we're talking reissues here, right? We're not even talking originals of that Jordan 1 shoe, which is like one of the iconic sneakers. It's in art museums. It's that. Just a quick Google, 240,000 Rand. Sorry, 240,000 Rand. And that's a reissue.
Rand or dollars?
Rand.
That's Rand.
Rand.
Right, just checking.
And that's a reissue.
Still nuts. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah, no. And so the originals, every now and again, like an original pair from the 80s will be found and some on an auction or whatever. And it's just like ridiculous. I mean, they break apart over time, you know, so they're not in mint condition. But I mean, this shoe is like, it's no longer just a shoe. It was the first time a sneaker became a fashion line. And it was the ad that they had. It's so iconic. I wish I had it now. It's so Michael Jordan wasn't allowed to wear these shoes because it contravened the NBA rules. So the very simple ad, they shot it in a day of Michael Jordan just bouncing a basketball, and then they shoot the shot up from the bottom up. And it said, on such and such a date, due to laws, Michael Jordan will not be able to wear the shoe anywhere near an NBA court. But that doesn't mean you can't. So it's just like this killer 30-second.
That's so clever, actually.
And it was that yeah, wow. It's just an amazing story. But like I said, it's so weird to hear that people saying Nike wasn't cool. It's like, that's outrageous. So those are 2 80-set movies. They got everything for me. They got everything.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Great soundtrack there as well.
I'm less excited about the Nike, although I did take a peek at the video of the trailer, and Jae Bae's hair. Let's just have a moment for the hair.
I mean, do you want to describe it?
I mean, do I? It looks like a wig. It probably isn't a wig, but it looks like a wig. Let's put it that way.
It could be. He's got very thick hair, so it does look like his natural hair that he grew out.
I reference it all the time on their podcast, his hair. It's quite funny.
He's got outrageously thick hair. What I love about it is Ben Affleck's sunglasses. There's one shot where they show me these outrageous 80s, like wide, like super futuristic.
I mean, let's talk about Ben Affleck's hair as well. You got to just watch just watch it for all the hair. Everywhere.
It's of the time. There's a lot of hair. What they haven't done yet is tell you who plays Michael Jordan. They've kept that under wraps. So he's not featured in the trailer yet, and they've kept it under wraps who plays Michael Jordan. It's probably out there somewhere, but they're going to do a big reveal of who plays him. So that is coming out in April or May, I saw. So that's what...
I'm a bit more excited for Tetris for obvious reasons.
Of course.
But yeah, I mean, well, Jae Bae, so we will watch it. Of course we will.
Of course. So, Dori, you said you're cheating a little bit. So, listen, I mean, that's 20 minutes in. We got movies all over the place, and we still haven't got to our movie recommendations. But you said you're cheating this week.
Yeah, well, I mean, as we say, our show, our rules. I mean, who's gonna smack me on the wrist?
Exactly.
Really, And I mean, I think it's a bit of a cheat, but I mean, there is a tenuous 80s link. Therefore, it is not cheating. Because as far as I'm concerned, we're good. Now, we have to start my discussion, which is a TV series, not a movie, but we have to start it by discussing the latest episode of The Last of Us.
So are we...
you are dying to get into.
Are we doing spoiler alerts?
Okay.
Do we have to do it?
Watch the latest episode of The Last of Us. Don't listen.
Yeah, I'd say skip ahead maybe 10 minutes.
Ish.
Or watch that and then come back to this.
Watch it and then come back and finish listening. Because,
exactly.
I mean, those of us who are now invested in The Last of Us, I don't know about you, but I'm like, Monday, before midnight on Monday, I have to have watched that episode. Because I know that if I haven't, I will come across a spoiler at some point by Tuesday.
But exactly right. If these like now, so a lot of the streaming services have gone back to episodic releases, like once a week type of thing, right? There's only Netflix does binging. So it's like, how can you avoid the spoilers, especially like in nerddom? Like Mandalorians now. So I haven't watched Mandalorian, the first episode yet of season 3. I'm like, but how do you avoid everything? Like, you just basically have to, like, do you mute it? Do you, like, it becomes pop culture. So I don't know how you can avoid it for longer than, like, I can kind of get away for 2 days. But by the time I got to it, I had already seen so many things pop up already. I was like, I know there's something. So you have done very well.
I mean, I watched it on Monday, but I haven't seen a single thing about it.
Really?
Anyway.
Listen, I'm in the nerd world, right? So, I mean, if you have gotten...
embedded.
I'm embedded, I'm in. Because when does it broadcast? It's like midnight on a Monday in South Africa, right? Monday, Tuesday.
I found that it's only available because it's on Showmax. And it plays on Sunday nights in America.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have it first thing Monday.
Yes, we don't.
Because last week when I was deathly ill, and I was not really working, I thought on Monday morning, let me just watch The Last of Us now because I'm not working. I'm dying in bed. That'll make me feel better. And at about 10 o'clock on Monday morning, I went. It wasn't available yet on Showmax. It was only available a bit later in the day.
I wonder, because I know it's also on DSTV. This is a very boring chat, but I think
it's so boring.
Maybe it comes on DSTV. But anyway, the point is, if you've gotten from Monday, Tuesday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whenever you hear this, and you don't know what's happened yet, you haven't watched it, is it, it's on you, right? Like it's not our fault. So no spoiler alerts.
No, I mean, it's not terrible spoilers.
No, it's not terrible.
I don't think that what we're going to talk about is a hectic spoiler at all.
No.
In fact, but yeah,
we're gonna talk about the music. We're gonna talk about the music because So in Last of Us,
we're going to talk about their 80s nods, which are very blatant. Very blatant. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying they have overwhelmingly blatant, in your face 80s nods compared to the series I'm going to talk about, where it's a bit more subtle.
Oh, okay. So
let's talk about The Last of Us.
So I missed episode 1, the part where they use music from different genres as codes, and I missed that like 3 minutes. I was like, what the fuck's going on?
But have you gone back and listened now?
I did go back, and they used 80s music, and they used a Depeche Mode song, but then Ellie also says she heard a song on the radio about somebody being woken up before he left or something like that. So that was it. So, okay, I was very happy, very pleased. Happy if they had played Wake Me Up Before You Go, but you take what you can get.
Yes. Hey, the reference is enough. We know.
Exactly.
So let's start with this week's episode, the very beginning. You see Ellie, this is a little bit, we're going back in time a little bit on the story. Ellie is exercising in a gym, like a school gym type setup, and she's listening to a Sony Walkman.
Love it.
Number 1, in your face.
It's straight in your face. That's it.
A little bit later, I think it was when she was already asleep in bed or lying in bed going to sleep, the camera shows you a pile of cassette tapes next to her bed. Right on top, Aha's greatest hits.
I'd like to think that, so great, cassettes. I'd like to think that these art departments of these massive studios, that's original. Do you not think?
Yeah.
I just need to know that that's an original cassette box for like just added nuance, just don't do a copy. That's got to be original.
That belongs to someone on the crew possibly, where they're like, we need some cassette tapes from the 80s. And someone on the crew's like, I've got, which would be you or me. But, I'll bring it in. I don't mind.
And then that's not the end of it. That's not the end of it.
No, that's not the end of it at all.
I got very excited because I hadn't watched it. I knew you watched it. No, I didn't know you watched it. So after this, bit of shenanigans, I'm not going to tell you what happens in the movie. Guess what? My big bugbear, who starts with Take On Me, not Last of Us, halfway through the episode, so you're nice and settled, Take On Me playing. Fantastic. Who doesn't want to hear Take On Me in a post-apocalyptic... Really crucial.
Really cool scene.
Really crucial scene. So nice bit of Take On Me. And then, of course, the reason we started the song with The Cure is a really, really nice... the show with The Cure. A really, really nice rendition of Just Like Heaven, when in like kind of a music box type of way.
And did you pick up straight away that it was Just Like Heaven? Because I'm watching that scene, I'm listening going, what is this? I know this because it's really not obvious at first. First of all, it's really just the music.
So straight away I knew it was an 80s song. Straight away I knew it was an 80s song.
Yes. No, absolutely. Yeah. And then I was like, I know this. And then I was like, I know this is The Cure. Not, you see, because I mean, I'm a Cure fan, but I'm not the biggest Cure fan.
Yeah.
And I sometimes get some of the big hits confused. And I was like, I know this is The Cure. But it's so different to the original. But it's, and I have to, and I'm going to give it to them. It was a bit more subtle.
Mm-hmm.
Well done on the subtlety. Finally, some subtlety. Well done.
So
yes, it was beautiful.
The thing is, so we've been trying to jump on the hashtag 80s means trouble, which is something which is their code. Like you just know shit is coming because that's so many 80s songs in one episode. Like shit is getting. Are they coming to the end of the series? They must be. I don't know if they're 8 or 10 or 13, but shit is coming because that's a lot of 80s.
Yeah.
That's a lot of 80s. Yeah. So it's going to get good. 80s means trouble. So that is spoiler alert over. We did say jump ahead 10 minutes, perfectly 10 minutes. So, it was 8.
Yes.
It was 8.
Okay, so as you mentioned, we're waiting every week for the latest episode of The Last of Us. So there's a gap for those of us who like to binge watch when we have time. There's this humongous gap every week when I have to wait for the next episode of The Last of Us. So I went to looking while I was sick especially, for some other things to watch. And I stumbled upon something which you may have heard of, also on Showmax. A little show called Station 11. It's relatively recent. I think it came out 2021.
Right.
It's actually been on my to-watch list on Showmax probably for a year. And I kind of look at it and go, I don't like to read blurb. I don't like to watch trailers. I don't like to read blurbs. I don't like too much given away. I prefer to just be surprised. So I'd seen it. I had been like, I've heard something about this. I'd added it to my list randomly about a year ago and then forgotten about it. And then when I was looking through the other day, I was like, oh, what is this again? And I click on it, read the synopsis and go, okay. Because again, we're talking, it's apocalypse, it's sci-fi, it's got an amazing cast, people I really love. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. 10 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I binged them. I finished last night. Paulo, I did the ugly cry.
Oh, wow.
Was you? I was sitting on my bed with my laptop on my lap, heaving ugly cry in the last episode. It's a very girly show in that way. So I'm like, I don't know if you would like it. And I can understand also it's had very mixed reviews. People, this is a polarizing show. You either really, really love it or you really, really hate it. And I went and looked at some of the reviews on IMDb. There's literally like it's either 10 out of 10 or 1 out of 10. Like there's nothing in between.
All right.
It's very polarized. I can understand why people hate it because there's something, the main thing of it would probably annoy a lot of people. In a nutshell, without too many spoilers, very similar to The Last of Us without one crucial element, which actually is what I like most about it. There's no infected. This is not a zombie apocalypse. This is an apocalypse that happens after a devastating flu kills most of the world's population. Let's call it 90% of the world's population is killed within days by this hectic flu.
Right.
And then there are just a few people who manage to survive. And then they come out from wherever they've been isolating. I mean, this came out. In fact, I read up about it. They had actually started filming it before COVID, funnily enough. It's based on a book. So the book was written a few years ago, long before COVID. Kind of bizarre that they started filming it a few months before the lockdown, had to stop production with the lockdown. And then, of course, when it came out, it was still kind of during the pandemic. And that's also why so many people hate it, because they're like, oh, guys, too soon. Because there's so many similarities to the whole COVID thing in this show, which they started making before COVID was a thing, which is bizarre in itself.
Well, so...
And like, oh my God.
So that's like, I mean, Last of Us is obviously based on a video game that came out way before, with a storyline that came up way before COVID. Also, there was that other show, Sweet Tooth, with all the kids who with certain kids are born with a mutation. And that's based on a comic book way before COVID, and the TV show as well that also started shooting and everything before. Do you not think it's just because like we're so aware of it because we kind of lived a version of it?
Yeah. No, maybe. But I mean, the thing with Station 11 is the whole thing is much closer to COVID because it was a flu. There's no zombies. There's no infected people. The flu ran its course, and then after a while, the survivors could come out and rebuild, basically. And how they rebuild is, it's almost like, I mean, if you had to just drop in on, for example, I think it's episode 2, where you see, because it goes from, I don't know, a few weeks before the outbreak, then you've got the day of the outbreak, a few months after the outbreak, and then it suddenly jumps to 20 years later. And if you jump into 20 years later, you wouldn't be wrong to think, oh, this is like a Robin Hood type set in Sherwood Forest type movie where it's set hundreds of years ago, because it's like hippies living off the land in nature, because that is how it was all reset. Everything was gone. Everything. There's no internet. There's no electricity. Nothing. It's all gone. And then these people start over, basically. And that was like, and the whole thing that it's all centered around is that they do, this particular group of people, they call themselves the Traveling Symphony. And they're a group of actors and singers, and they basically perform specifically Shakespeare. They go around and perform Shakespeare plays for people, because there's no other form of entertainment. There's nothing.
Do they?
It's not even books anymore, really.
do they claim that they wrote those plays themselves? Like, who's going to prove you wrong?
It's like they do have books. They do have, some proven books. But let's get back on track here. The show is called Station 11, which is actually in the story. There is a graphic novel that one of the characters writes called Station 11, which is a very futuristic sci-fi thing. Central theme being loss and grief. The woman had lost her whole family. Spoiler alert. Not really, but and this book has a tremendous effect on the few people who because there were only 5 copies ever made of the book in the storyline. And the story focuses on 2 of the people who got hold of this book. And it's almost like, it's actually kind of, I suppose you could interpret it as an analogy of the Bible, where this book has this profound effect on them and changes their whole life. And the one does something with it and the other person does something completely different with it. It's just so fascinating. But there was a few things that struck me. So in the very first episode, where you actually are on the day of the outbreak, and it's 2020. In the storyline, it is the year 2020. The main character is this 8-year-old girl, and she is in a Shakespeare play. She's an actress. She's just been in a Shakespeare play on Broadway, and she's in her like fancy dress or whatever that she was wearing for the play. And then she comes out afterwards. It's cold. It's Chicago, and it's cold, like snowy, freezing cold. And she's wearing this very thick windbreaker, which is the most 80s windbreaker you've ever seen in your life. It's literally pink and blue stripes and puffy. Imagine an 80s windbreaker, So that was the first thing that struck me, was like, wow, that's so bizarre that like an 8-year-old kid in 2020 has that kind of clothing. But anyway, slight, very subtle nod, right? Initial. Then we go along, we're watching. There's 10 episodes, like I say. I think it's probably, it's quite a few episodes in, where the one character goes and raids a house. You're not going to bump into any zombies in these abandoned homes, because that's not the story, which is great in a way. And he finds like a movie projector type thing. And he says to the kid, we can watch movies tonight. And then later on, you see them watching the movie. And what are they watching? Pick an 80s movie, Paulo. It's not The Breakfast Club, but close.
Say anything.
No.
Ferris Bueller.
Pretty in Pink. Pretty in Pink. Okay. You see a scene and you see so little of it. Only people who know Pretty in Pink will know it is Pretty in Pink. You see like 5 seconds of it. That's it.
Look, it took a long while to get there, but it was worth the Pretty in Pink there, so I'll take it.
Well, I was like, oh yay, an 80s nod. So cool. Okay. And I thought that was it. We're done. We were not done, because the next episode was possibly the same episode, but later. I don't know. I binged, so I've lost track. You actually hear If You Leave by OMD playing. It plays. And you're thinking, oh, this is like a soundtracky thing. But then it turns out it's actually playing within the storyline. And it seems random, but it's not random. And it's like, beautiful. Just beautiful. And I know that those was just a couple of subtle little things versus the blatant, overwhelming stuff in The Last of Us. But what I want to say is, watch this show, because for me, actually, I have to say, and I know this is going to be very controversial, I prefer it to The Last of Us. I actually think it's amazing. An amazing series. Loved every second of it. Like I said, did the ugly cry a few times. And yeah, as a bonus, you get some 80s nods. But it's a great show.
I did see it on the lineup. Honestly, I thought it was about a drama set in a fire station. That's it, and I hate those.
Right? I know that. That's why I kind of didn't pay attention to it for so long, because I was like, I don't know what this is about. Whatever. Okay. Oh, and there's also many references to Star Trek, but that's more like 60s, 70s era Star Trek. We're talking early Star Trek. There's quite a few references to it, and apparently even stronger in the actual original book. But we'll give that a mention, even though it's not 80s.
I would do, like, if I was in that situation, which, hey, listen, we may be, because I don't think they got things the way they wanted during COVID 1. They're definitely going to bring COVID 2. They're going to get it right. They've learned their lessons. They're going to fuck us up right to the next time.
Please don't.
I would, if I end up in that situation, which I think is inevitable, we will, and all our historical documents have been destroyed, I'm going to pretend I invented like a lot of shit, like write a lot of things and pretend it was me. Like, oh, what a great imagination this guy's got. I'll like do, like if Star Wars has been eradicated from everyone's memory, I'm going to like create it. And people are like, this guy.
Why would you be the only person who remembers and everyone else has forgotten?
But you don't know, like you don't know who you're going to end up with. Like there are people who don't know Star Wars, like Simpsons, like, oh, let me create this thing about this family. Like I'll just do all that stuff. And people are like, this guy is a genius. He's a literally
It's like the
genius.
movie yesterday, the guy who invents the Beatles songs.
Exactly. I mean, same thing. I mean, you know, when I was watching yesterday, and of course that movie, the guy wakes up in a world where everybody's forgotten the Beatles. The Beatles didn't exist, so he releases their songs and becomes huge. I'd Wham.
Yeah.
I'd do Wham. Wake up in a world, no one remembers Wham. It's me. I don't quite think I'm at George Michael's level. I think I'm missing a few key ingredients. But I'd make just a few. Just the overall smoldering goodness. That's what I do. So that's Dori's. You see, this is what you got to understand. The things that gets Dori and I interested in stuff. It's like, where am I going to find an 80s reference? So let me tell you, I also went on a little bit of a roundabout thing. So I watched, I know you don't like superhero movies. I watched the new Ant-Man, and in it is Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas. 80s icons, so big in the 80s. They were superstars, world's sexiest people, so bankable. I was like, oh, they must have done a movie together. Do you know they never did? It's weird to believe that.
Really?
Such big stars, they never did they didn't do anything together. The first project they ever worked on was Ant-Man, I think the second one. This is the third one, right? So they never worked on a movie together. But by now, I was in the Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer kind of world. I was like, okay, I'm going to do a movie, one of those two. I found a movie, Dori. It is quite a batshit Michelle Pfeiffer movie. She's super young in here. One of her first roles before she becomes a big star. Also starring...
Before Grease?
It was before Grease, right?
Okay.
So she becomes... she's kind of like on the edge. People know this is going to be somebody quite big, but we're going to... Let's see what happens. It also stars Jeff Goldblum, right?
Love me some Jeff Goldblum.
Right. Do you know of a movie with Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Pfeiffer? I bet not. So sorry, it was...
I can't think of one right now.
Actually, I'm lying. It was after Grease and Scarface.
Oh, okay.
So she was known. Okay, so I'm lying. She was known. Okay, doesn't change it. She was known by then. So Jeff Goldblum, he's like a scientist, and he's very put upon, hates life, sits in traffic. Like he's insomniac. He's just having the most. Everything sucks for him. And his best friend, Dan Aykroyd, says to him, look, just take the day off, go home, surprise your wife, and just have a good day and you'll feel better. Guess what happened in the 80s when you went home to surprise your wife?
Oh, your wife surprised you back.
She's bonking the neighbor. So he's like, oh, well, fuck, this is just it. I'm out. So he decides he's going to drive to the airport and just get on the next plane and get the hell out of there. Weird thing about watching 80s movies, I was never old enough to know if this was possible in South Africa, but I'm sure it was. People would just show up at the airport with a passport. You could just buy a ticket and go anywhere.
I think you still can, in theory. I mean, unless the flight is booked.
You're going to pay a fortune. I mean, you're going to pay an absolute fortune. Right?
Yeah, it just seems to be a thing in the movies.
Yeah. So, like, they would just show up and just get a flight and just go anywhere. So, anyway.
Well, I once only in my whole life, and not my fault, it was through someone else, missed a flight.
Okay.
In Ireland, we were traveling back from Ireland and we missed our flight. But then we managed to get on a later flight that day. So it's doable.
What? But that's a different thing. So it's missing flights because you've theoretically got a flight that's now just being compensated, right? You just walked with your cigarette in the airport, say, hey, listen, I feel like smoking cigarettes in the sky. Like, I'm just give me a ticket. Right.
I mean, can you believe people used to smoke on planes?
Oh, I know. Little ashtrays were disgusting. So so in the airport parking lot, Michelle Pfeiffer literally falls on top of his car. She's running away from people. And she says, you got to rescue me. You got to save me. He's like, my life sucks. You're beautiful. Get in the car. We're getting out of here. And shenanigans kick off. The movie is called Into the Night. Okay.
I literally have never heard of it.
Right.
You said to me, you're going to never have heard of my movie. I was like, we'll see.
No.
I have never heard of that movie.
It is, and when I'm going to tell you the facts about this movie, it is the weirdest thing. So they now go shenanigans. There's some Middle Eastern terrorists. There was an overthrow of a government. Some crown jewels were stolen. She has the crown jewels. She's trying to get them to people. People are trying to get her. They're driving around in LA, middle of the night. No one's around. It's just odd shenanigans, right? Don't worry about 80s movie shenanigans. It's just a lot of shenanigans. It is a black comedy terrorist noir. That's described, right? And reviews were like I watched it. I was like, I don't know if it's a comedy and I don't know if it's an action movie, right? It's caught in this weird space between the two. So not only is it, so I mentioned Dan Aykroyd quickly, and I mentioned Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Pfeiffer. The movie was directed by John Landis. Now, John Landis has done Coming to America. He did Trading Places. He's done Blues Brothers. He did The Twilight Zone. He did so many movies in the 80s. In this movie, he uses it as a tool to cast all his director friends in little cameo roles, right? So I don't know a lot of the directors, but David Cronenberg is he's in it. He's in it. He's just some supervisor, just some admin pencil pusher.
He's always like a random cameo that you don't even recognize him half the time.
Exactly. So he's in it. That's the one name I recognized. But all through it, and you'll know some of these people, like I'm not even going to try to pretend that I know them, but I'll give you the list. But it's all these little cameos, and if you know 80s movie directors, 70s and 80s movie directors, they just all pop up as like little cameos, and it's this running gag. It's this, the movie is filled with running gags of John Landis movies, John Landis Easter eggs. So it's like, if you're a fan of him and his world and his universe, you'll love this movie. But it is just full-on 80s shenanigans, mid-80s Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, let's just take a moment. And Jeff Goldblum and all his weirdness.
Yeah. It sounds great. Where can I watch this movie? Do I need to find it myself?
You're an adult. You understand how the internet works. It is...
I do. Okay, I will find it myself.
You can pay for it. So I did see it on Apple TV and Google TV. It is all there. I found a way to find it. Don't worry about it.
No, this sounds cool.
I also do... Cool. I think I saw... I did see it on YouTube, but I could stand corrected. But anyway, that is my movie, Into the Night. I told you never heard it.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
Was it a complete flop?
It really was, because people didn't know what it was. People just didn't understand what it was about. It was kind of like too clever with all the like little artist nods and the director nods and things like that. So it was a little bit too clever for itself. Yep. But anyway, give it is a good movie. I do like. You don't know what it is like. If you go in expecting a comedy, it's not that funny. If you go in expecting an action movie, it doesn't have that much action. It's kind of like
so that's why it's a flop, because they couldn't pigeonhole it.
Yeah, caught in between. But if you're a fan of John Landis and a whole bunch of the directors in this movie, you will enjoy it. Fun fact: do you remember REM's video for "Everybody Hurts"?
Yes.
Right, everyone's stuck in traffic.
Well, I hate the song, but I remember the video. It was a good video.
The stuck in traffic scene cut from this movie. Yeah. So they took that scene and then they cut it into that video. Interesting. Fun fact. REM.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Interesting.
So that is Station 11, right? I got my right station there. And then
Station 11.
Into the Night with Jeff Goldblum, Michelle Pfeiffer. We have done a lot of movie stuff. We've spoken about my Google alerts, right?
We have. I'm sure there's many we can't speak about, but
no.
You know.
I've got a lot of Google alerts on all 80s people. I need content for the show. The other day, I get very excited when I see a particular Google alert, Glen Medeiros. I'm like, what's he up to? Because the last we saw Glen Medeiros, he was back in Hawaii, him of the one-hit wonder. In case you don't remember Glen Medeiros, this was his one hit.
Here's just all the time I was born in. You want to know my number, how much? How do you feel me? One day you plan to soon, but I'm never rest for more than you.
Right? So, schmaltz.
Did not have to do that.
I did.
Did not have to do that. I'm just saying.
I did.
You really didn't.
I did have to do that. So that's his one hit. He kind of became famous when he was about 17, makes his hit, all the girls love him. And then he just stops music, goes back to Hawaii, and he becomes an administrator. He's a principal at a boys' college in Hawaii. So that's what he does, looking very much like a middle-aged dad. No hint of 80s heartthrob anywhere. You know, Jason Bateman, still doing the 80s heartthrob thing. Glen Medeiros, no, middle-aged dad. No. Okay.
Would not recognize him. I don't think I would have recognized him in the streets in the 80s either, let's be clear.
You know what? He was very generic, fluffy mullet, leather jacket. I mean, he looked like pretty much every Portuguese guy from the 80s. So you're right. We wouldn't have seen him, even though he was Portuguese. So what? So I get a Google alert. Glen Medeiros. Next thing, American Idol. So I'm like, oh, is Glen Medeiros a guest judge? Are they doing a Glen Medeiros week? I don't know how these song shows work, but I know every now and again.
You got excited. Admit it.
I got excited. Glen Medeiros. I want to see what's happening. Then I see Glen Medeiros, Katy Perry pushing. The words push. What? Katy Perry fight with Glen Medeiros? I've got to click on the link. So I was both intrigued and upset. So no Glen Medeiros. Glen Medeiros' daughter, Lyric Medeiros, is on American Idol. Right? So we'll post this up. Listen, another judge on American Idol, Lionel Richie, he is one of the judges. I found this out by clicking on the link. So
we don't watch American Idol generally.
No, generally do not watch it. I don't know how well she's doing. I don't know what this is from about like 2 weeks ago. So maybe I should follow up. People get knocked out. I don't know what that is. So she goes on to American Idol from Hawaii. Interesting that she's never used her father's connections to kind of get into the music industry. She wants to get into the music industry. Glen Medeiros also got his start by winning a local radio talent competition. So I suppose this is the kind of equivalent of it. And she's having a crack at American Idol. She does her audition. And, you know, like somebody called Lyric. And if your dad was Glen Medeiros, you're not going to be edgy, I don't think. If your dad is Axl Rose, edgy. If your dad is...
I mean, do we need to explain this right now?
Right.
I mean, do we need...
So if your dad's Glen Medeiros, you're going to be the nicest person ever. And she's lovely. She's a lovely little beautiful girl, like just very soft. And now she's trying to sing like this big song and they're like push it. That's why Katy Perry starts pushing her to say, you got to get angry with me. You got to get angry to get the best performance. And she's like, no, to get a good performance. And they make lots of references. Say, you know, your dad will know that this industry isn't tough. This industry isn't easy and you've got to be tough and you've got to be ugly. And it's like, maybe her dad did tell her and he doesn't want her involved, because I was like, okay, the parents are outside. Now we're going to see Glen Medeiros. No Glen Medeiros, the mom. Mom Medeiros.
I can feel your disappointment. I can actually feel it. I'm sorry.
But I did find Glen Medeiros in this whole story.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
So we're going to post this up on that 80 Show SA Facebook page. There is this really cool Twitter video, TikTok video of Glen Medeiros, again, middle-aged dad, and Lyric Medeiros, fun fact, got another son, Cord Medeiros.
Cord? As in C-H-O-R-D?
Correct. Lyric, Cord.
Child abuse. It is child abuse. Child abuse.
You know, the thing is, Glen Medeiros, he didn't take into the whole pop star lifestyle, but he's like, I've got to give my kids pop star kids names. Claims the mother came up with the names. It was you. You're a pop star. Cord and Lyric Medeiros. A really cool video which hits you right in the feels of them singing Nothing's Gonna Change My Love For You. Lovely. But you got to see Glen Medeiros in this video. Like, I'm middle-aged dad, so I'm like, hey, it's cool. Like, I'm not hating on you. He's middle-aged dad who runs a school. Like, I'm so happy for him. And the kids are like, hey, listen, you may not like my dad's song, but it sold lots of records and got him to perform in 30 countries and give me the lifestyle that not many people can have. So, rather be a one-hit wonder than a no-hit wonder, Dori. Can take that to the grave. Take that to the grave. So
those are your words of wisdom for the day.
Those are my words of wisdom. So far, Lyric is still in American Idol, but who knows? Listen, it put Glen Medeiros back in the limelight.
Because you sent me that clip, so I watched it. She sings okay. It's not bad. And I'm sure anything will be better than Glen Medeiros. So I'm okay with it.
How dare you? I still have hope that for the final, she gets to sing her dad's song and he walks out on stage. Cue the world folding in on itself. Done. I'll vote for it.
Dude, the audience watching that show don't know who he is.
But their parents will know. And their parents will lose their minds. They'll lose. That's like this show. Kids listen, they go, what are you talking about? Their parents are losing their minds. People don't think of the parents.
For the wrong reasons.
Probably medication. It's a side effect. It's a side effect of the arthritis medication we get. We're all there. Thank you for joining me, Dori. Lots of nonsense today. I did enjoy the show. It veered in lots of different directions. But many different directions. Is there anything that you learned in today's show to take away with you?
I learned that even with Jae Bae's weird wig type bizarre hair in that upcoming movie Air, I'll still do him.
Thanks for joining me, Dori. That Any Show is a Facebook page. Goodbye.